Sheila here with Sirius Dallas Moon. The moon is ingressed into Scorpio, and the Mercury is 1 degree Sagittarius, which means it is about to ingress into Scorpio as well in its retrograde motion, ruling over Ascendant and Midheaven. Some energies that arise. Two things. One is the burst of people talking about or carrying text messages and stuff like that. Light mentioned that. I also saw that in another place. Um, Bringing their text messages to social media. That's one thing I want to address from several aspects. The other thing is getting an energy where two ungrounded people had their energy blended and mixed. And whether by purpose or not, they ended up walking with one another's energy. So while one began to have stable relationships, the other began to be more sociable, and so on and so forth. But then at a certain time, um, they would either get their energy back or form a self or form a sense of self. And that could have caused a series of collapse of timelines or relationships. Not necessarily malefic. Okay, so that's one thing that I'm receiving. And that's a cold case. That's something was way back in the years. Another thing is the topic that there are several occasions where I saw people having their private conversations discussed with other people and so on. Now, here's the thing. First of all, Uranus, outer planets in Mercury, Taurus, Libra, Virgo, the presence of an outer planet there, or transiting Venus and Mercury, is exactly that. Mercury is messages, Uranus is spread out in the open. Secondly, our governments already see our messages. Okay? Our private messages are not really private. They wanted to legalize that, but in praxis it's already being observed, including our thoughts and dreams. So it's not about whether it's a good thing, bad thing, privacy concern, and so on. There is no privacy at the age of air. Like, this is a facet of the spirit of the time. It's not a good thing, it's not a bad thing, it's just a facet of the time. If I go and have a flying hotel or a flying, okay, there are initiations like that, then there would be certain facets to the environment. For example, people won't be just able to take a walk outside as they would be able to do on a ferry in a nice weather. Okay? If they would take a cruise ship around the world, we would be able to create a garden so that they can walk and so on. In a plane, it's not impossible, but they won't be able to contact the outside air of the actual environment, okay, for their safety. And that would not be scientific gaslighting to say so, okay? So, when we're talking about the age of air, we're basically talking about things being on air. It can bring a wave of radical acceptance. Falcon, how many times did you pick your nose, whether in your car or in the bus, and then wondered if there is a receipt you can put that thing? Okay? Our government saw that. It's probably very embarrassing. if we'll have a public position, somebody could pull up that snapshot, and it's quite embarrassing. But here's another thing. There, they also observe the non-public spaces. Through classified projects that is funded by public money. That might mean that somebody working with those classified projects might be even forced to see their best friend showering, for example. And I'm being very tender. And play it normal. Another facet to this is that there is a social engineering campaign for people to do those things with. They're being triggered so that they will reveal and vent, because when a relationship is over, friendship or not, and people vent, this is like a volcanic eruption of information. Okay, now it's the most human thing to vent. In fact, it can even be healthy. In a supportive environment, for a person to vent can actually release and let off some steam that they need to later either communicate with their partner, or, okay, or not communicate, or move on to a better relationship. But just venting is a part, it's a normal part of separation, or, okay, um, allowing the emotion to move around the body, and exit in a way that is not violent towards one another. Because sometimes we piss each other off, sometimes we push each other's buttons, not even consciously. And not only that, we would be juxtaposed in ways that would push each other's buttons even without social engineering. I mean, of course, if I'm an astrologer that doesn't know how to computate, the people around me would either be mathematicians, or people that either don't believe in astrology, or just people that found Jesus or something, okay? If I had a case where my parents divorced and there was a risk to my life because of that, then of course I would be juxtaposed to children who would be afraid that their parent would die all their life and then their parent was assassinated. Okay? Two types of missing fathers. Um, if I was born in natural birth, that the parent insisted on having, even if it meant bringing a third party into the mix where everybody knows, of course, cloning is a normal and expected juxtaposition. Okay? If Adolf Hitler was thinking to exterminate all Jews, why not bring him next to Eva Braun? Didn't help the Jews. Didn't help Eva Braun either. But at least they both found their death. They got cyanide. And, um, that's better. Um, And there are a gazillion more juxtapositions like that I can pull out, and they could be equally funny. And even in relationships where people don't think they're really that polarized, we usually would find some polarization. Even I remember when I um, was going to mattresses shop when I was manifesting my home. So I went to all kinds of divisions of the housing sector. And I remember that they were selling separate mattresses for the spouses. And usually, if one likes the mattress harder, the other one likes it softer. That's just the way we are in humanity. Um, Sometimes those juxtapositions are calibrated on and done in purpose. So, of course, when a relationship like that breaks up, is terrifying, and of course, people vent. It's normal. I think living with one another in this world is secondary trauma, no matter how much shadow work we do. Okay, I can say as a person that has spent a decade and a half on self improvement, therapy, and so on and so forth, some of those things were even trauma. Probably would have been secondary trauma to leave beside me, even as a roommate. And while it could be the blessings as well, there are also the traumas as well. And yeah, I mean, it also works. I think even in the best relationship, when somebody separates, we both see how, hey, that attribute of mine was temporarily allocated to another person, and certain attributes, even if it's people where it broke up really malefically, okay, certain attributes were kind of adopted, or I can see how I became, you know, more authentic and less diplomatic, while other friends of mine became more diplomatic, um, and I don't know if less authentic, um, but that can also be those juxtapositions. Now, when it comes to those that calibrate on that information, even when I was accidentally dating a guy, um, and then I really received how there are many things that I would, just, accept about a person or see or something like that, and not ask questions. Definitely not the first time I meet the person. Okay, I don't interrogate a person. There was an expectation that I will ask questions. There was witnessing, okay, whether it's watchers of me or watchers of the other person, that from that interaction that to us would be a date would serve third parties in knowing information about both of us. Because how are people to date if they don't divulge information about one another? Think about it. Dating situation is one of those situations where people really want to have the information about one another. So there are many other, it's like a river, and there are many living species flocking by the river because there's life there. they also want fresh water. They also want, maybe something growing next to the river. They also want to eat from the crops. They they also want to be participating in the wealth. Okay, this couple. What could we sell this couple? What could we buy from this couple? Is this even a couple? Um, what can we get them to do? What information can we get them to divulge about one another? Um, and those things are used in times of peace and in times of war as well. Now they're just more transparent. So conflict is something that we don't want to avoid. And also, many people and forces thrive on certain people being in conflict. If we go by the elite or old money families that don't get their conflicts divulged outside, we also get people that feel imprisoned in their own family intergenerational wealth with no support system whatsoever. Now, what's important to remember at this time? Uranus is a planet of change. Outer planets bring change. Black Moon Lilith brings a lot of change. Okay, sexual sovereignty. Wherever, when Black Moon Lilith, okay, the planet of sexual sovereignty was going through my fifth house of Cancer, my utmost sexual fantasy was a hug. I learned to meet my non erotic needs before my erotic needs, which was a jump start to recovery that served a lot of grounding. And it became a new standard. Um, and also became aware of how certain things in my life were going, where if, let's say, a friend needed to be the smaller spoon or to be caretaken to, and to the extent that they met that need, even in that friendship, they were wanting naturally to meet more of that need, but I might not have been the correct person to provide. Okay, definitely not a time where I need to meet my own needs, and knew nothing about how to meet my emotional needs adaptively and so on and so forth. So those things became realizations and eurekas that were really important to, um, and revelations that are really important, because sometimes people could feel victimized even by a situation, when the other person doesn't just acquiesce to their needs, and it's because they are needing to meet their own needs and they can't really provide on that level. Then when people deprive themselves they may feel entitled, and that can create a big crisis. And when it permeates the housing, okay, then they can also become actually sick. Um, I don't have the answer on how to meet all of our needs adaptively. Light was just having a channel about people that outgrow relationships because, and she's always way more blunt than me, so I'm going to say tenderly. um, okay, as an astrologer, um, certain we're we have certain readiness to face certain things, and sometimes we have certain transits that, ready or not, we're going to face certain things at different times. Okay, Uranus was transiting my sun in Taurus when it was squaring Saturn, or when Saturn was squaring it. Okay, to other people it may be trining. To other people, they might not even have a Uranus transiting their sun in their lives. Okay, um, it means they might not live to 84. Um, it means that at certain times people are evolving or meeting their shadows or tending to recovery more than other times, and that can be timeline incompatibility or growing timeline incompatibility between relationships. Okay, for example, if um, when I stopped being addicted to chocolate, if prior to that I dated a guy that would be completely addicted to chocolate, um, we were not compatible anymore. He would have to match up with my timeline because I would not give my health and my life for the sake of, okay, supposedly having a relationship. And later we found out that underneath that, there were all types of patterns, or at least I found out that underneath that, all kinds of patterns, beliefs about love, relationships, and intimacy that are, at the very least, not compatible with mine. Okay? I dare say not healthy, but then everybody has their own timeline of healing as long as they don't violate the rights of another, which they did. Um, but that is another topic. Now, it is a time where many people that are on a trajectory of healing and recovery tend to change in the world. As we change ourselves, we expect the world to adjust. And those that try to keep people um, from healing, growing, and so on and so forth, generate the very absence, rejection that they are afraid to face. Um, and then they might go about to change in a more crisis way. Again, not judging anybody. Okay, it's life. And there is also another facet where what's done behind in the astral field or in mystery or behind the back of someone or something like that, um, it has an effect in the sense that there would be a response to that. Just like if somebody heals, let's say a predator heals from being a predator, their victims are likely to feel relief. Now, at the same time, if somebody does a smear campaign behind someone's back, um, that's actually, it may affect certain things that somebody might need to just address in their life. But it will also expose what's the timeline. What you know, what is it that we are venting? Because venting is very good to unravel what's underneath. So when we vent, what is it we are venting about? Now, I'm being extremely cautious here because for many people it's just normal venting. And now we're gonna see that venting, a lot of it done on social media, okay? Um, and the outbreaks that people have are triggered by something. Uranus in the sign of relationships is about those things of the private being more public. Okay? When we have a government that expects its civilians to blackmail one another on nude videos that they caught in one's own bedroom, bathroom, not even sleeping with anyone, this is a booming that is coming to address those things. Of course, nobody could be expected if in their real estate there are hidden cameras spying on people or tenants or people who sublet an apartment. They can't expect to get paid for the real estate. Not just because somebody is doing a stunt or somebody is even standing their rights. The people living there will become sick and they won't be able to live there anymore. What they thought to profit on, the people would pay attention that something is off and they would look for where does it not happen. Wait a second, is this global? Okay, we need to address that. Why do our smart cameras not find the kidnapped people but extort or try to film people within their own enclosed spaces under the guise of smart houses? In the age of air, this is on air. What's happening to segments of society will happen to all of society. In when Neptune was in Aquarius, there was the phenomena of revenge porn. Pluto, it's with Pluto, it's by our governments. Or the wealth, or those behind the lobbyers behind them, okay, the wealth consolidation behind them. Now, when somebody has unrealistic expectation from another, not because their needs are not valid, they will go through this phase of feeling victimized if they keep trying to just give that person time, and they'll become something that, um, okay, or how should I say that? As long as there is sexual boundary violation, one cannot expect to have sex. It doesn't matter if you're the nice guy or the toxic guy. I mean, unless you want to have sex with a borderline and then have, be assassinated, or with a sex worker, and then informants targeting you for assassination. I mean, that's a possibility for some. Um, but hey, what did you do on a collective level to abolish any type of sexual boundary violation that you expect to be able to easily have sex, whether with your girlfriend or spousey or when dating? How, if a condom tears up, how is the medical system looking? How is the divorce and ability to own two separate houses looking, even if you think about having sex only after marriage? I, I, I don't know how you're going to be sexually compatible, but granted that you found a way to discover metaphysically being sexually, as an astrologer, I would never give advice on whether people will be sexually compatible or not. Um, because the same, Asmodeus can be a diamond, it can be somebody that is like a dominatrix, and it can be somebody that is waiting for Asmodeus to kill all the people that come with lust and not with love. So if I would interpret that as one or another thing, it would mean that I doom a couple to divorce. So my astrological consultation is not compatible with arranged marriage. It doesn't mean that that people want are not able to take that and have couples meet each other and that being successful. I'm like, okay, if that works fantastically, but I wouldn't give consultation that is arranged marriage. Okay? And anyway, y'all gonna have to take the Nazi cult out of both out of both people, because otherwise it's not. Of course, if somebody's needs are not met, they feel victimized because they were given their best self, forgetting about all the times where something that seems casual to them was incredibly violating of another person's life energy, unbeknownst to them, and then their needs weren't met. They feel victimized. Now, when we are aware, when we even give place for our needs to be met, that is actually adaptable, the economy has to adjust. I mean, we can't be run by oligarchy and wealth consolidation on tortured children and expect everyone's needs to be met. Now, what people take out of that is that they have to compromise their needs or compromise them ever having love. No, we just need to change those conditions that we're told that we cannot change, and not play into the hand of extortion cults. And particularly those that try to make another person fit with their vision rather than getting clear on their vision and seeing if there are people that fit that. People deciding for another person who they are and then being flabbergasted when they're being called offender or Nazi war criminal, which is because the core of that issue is basically the occultism that is set as a personality cult. Okay, so that makes them participate in Nazi crimes against humanity based occultistic practices in the very ways that the Nazis used that. Okay, so it's not even a practice taken out of context in that regard. And if they think that it is, then their fraternities, sororities, secret societies, and those that fund them don't think so. Now, being aware of that is something we can all tend to, um, because yes, this is a time where Mercury messages can explode on social media, Uranus, because Mercury is in the orb of opposing Uranus. And also remember the situations where, let's say, I don't know, I'm having a podcast that spoke about several more personal stories that usually come as an example to something that's happening in the world in a way that people can resonate with. And certain people might have been, wait, they didn't talk about me because they're afraid to talk about me. And then that coming out through um, even through channeling, and I'm like, okay, then that is what I have to address regarding that, or that topic coming, or me setting boundaries, and then why am I running to this person? Why does it seem like I'm running to this person? Is it really this person? Is what's happening there? Should I go out and actually meet that person in person? I meet that person in person, and I realized that I was completely out of touch with how they see things. I'm like, okay, but then I have to set boundaries to being severely attacked by this person. What the fuck happened to this person? who was that person that I thought I knew? So Mercury opposing Uranus will have a lot of these things. And it will oppose Uranus on the degree from Scorpio in the cold case decan of Scorpio. Expect old texts to surface. Now here is the thing. Those that are actually targeted individuals don't even have the old texts. And remember, nothing is more embarrassing than the films of our elite exploiting children. Nothing that your ex said, nothing that you said to your ex, nothing that anybody said, whether they were drunk, whether they were sober, whether I don't know. None of that is more embarrassing, discriminatory, or revealing than those films. And if you play into what the conflict is really about, you will find out that wealth consolidation practices of the elite are at the source of the conflict. Oh, that person, I gave them everything. They wouldn't even give me a kiss. They were recovering from ritual abuse. What kiss were you expecting for? The kiss of death? Like, did you want them to not ground themselves in the face of people who would try to be their handlers to get information out of you to assassinate you? That's. Do you have a realistic appraisal about what type of rituals were done on people without them even being aware? I'm not just talking about Annika Lucas and how that affects the human psyche, the ability to have intimacy. They see you as a trafficker. When you ponder about these things, they see you as a trafficker. When you think that somebody owes you sex, they see you as a trafficker. And as a Nazi war criminal, because those things were created by the Nazi occult that didn't honor the life energy and the life of the sovereign regardless of gender. Now, here is the thing with those type of traumas, people don't even know that they are recovering from them until a death row case comes out. Now, if you're invested in creating the digital fascism, subjugating women, oppressing people, and so on and so forth, then, don't expect that to not show up as a challenge in relationship or even the way that people separate. Okay, I just gave the example of having to separate from a 10 years old friendship, or so I thought, that there was an energy work there that was not honoring my boundaries. I did not know what that thing is, but I was not even able to communicate leaving because of that type of dumb fuckery witchcraft. Okay, Sedna was with Beta per se at the time, which literally meant I left, blocked, and made no contact whatsoever until I couldn't defend my own energy boundaries. And in the one time after several years that I did go to see the person, I was severely raped and attacked in the astral. So if you are a Nazi war criminal, don't expect people to have loving relationships with you.